I have somehow moved in to the hottest flat in all of Scotland. So please excuse me if I look particularly sweaty in this video. But you know, hey ho, it's better than no videos, right? Which is what you've been getting. So yeah, hi, I'm Jean, if you've forgotten who I am. I'm back, at least for now, to film a book haul. Pretty self-explanatory. In terms of why I haven't been around, and if you don't really follow me elsewhere online, you might not know that I am very much in the final stages of completing my PhD. My thesis is due at the absolute latest by the 31st of July. Like, that's my final day of enrollment as a student. It has to be in by then or not at all. So there we are. I am naturally in a bit of a downward spiral with that. I don't think anybody gets to this point in a PhD and doesn't get incredibly stressed. My mental and physical health have taken massive tolls, to be perfectly honest. Like, I'm not my best self. And if that wasn't stressful enough, they are actually planning on axing the entire classics department at my university. So my supervisors, among more than 200 other members of staff who work in the arts and humanities departments in general, are being made redundant, which naturally has affected my focus, which affects the assistants and the staff at the university are able to give me as a PhD student, but also, like, more widely affects my relationship with the university and the subject, and I worry about what's going to happen to it. So if you aren't aware of everything that's going on in general with post-92 universities and arts and humanities in the UK, I'll link some articles down below. I'll also link a petition to support Roehampton Classics Department. And that's, you know, weighing on my mind, but I am also just trying to focus on getting my own PhD done. You know, this is 6 years worth of research and it might be coming to an end in a bit of a tumultuous time, but it's got to pay off, right? It's gotta pay off, gang. It's gotta pay off. And to be honest, one of the ways I've been coping with my stress recently is buying books. Like, I have no other excuse for the number of books in this book haul. I have definitely brought more books into my home than I can read at the pace I'm reading right now over the past month or two. Like, that is just a fact. Hopefully once PhD's over, I'll be able to read more. I've not been reading as much recently, and this stuff will all, you know, be enjoyed as I'm expecting it to. But I am excited about everything, even if I'm not going to be reading it tomorrow or next week. And, you know, that experience of popping into bookshops and meeting a friend for a coffee and buying a book has lifted a little bit of my anxiety and my depression, to be honest, briefly, in moments. So I'm taking it. I have no guilt over all the books here, but you know, just to clarify, I don't think this is a normal amount of books for one person to acquire in the space of like a month or so. It's not really a normal amount for me to acquire anyway, because I don't read at this pace. But hey ho, we're doing what we can to get through, and to be honest, I am at the stage where I'm cutting myself off from buying more books, mainly because just to add to the disasters that are happening around me at the moment, my bathroom turns out to be severely water damaged, like the floor underneath the linoleum in my bathroom of the flat I bought a few months ago has like months, if not years worth of water damage. It's an issue that predates us living here, and the cost of repairing it I honestly can't comprehend at the moment. So yeah, I'm gonna avoid buying books until we have a better handle on what's happening there. So yeah, that's what's happening with me. Videos might be a little bit further and fewer between over the next few weeks, as obviously I will be knuckling down and trying to get my PhD submitted in time. But I do have a ton of plans for videos I want to film in August and afterwards, especially like some videos that I've kind of wanted to film for years and never really felt like I had the time for, like more in the format of video essays. So, you know, if you have any requests for more long form videos or things you'd like to see when all of this stress is over, let me know. But in the meantime, let's go with a classic, let's go with something that brings me joy, and let's talk about the books I have picked up during my PhD stress. Although I should say that some of the books were sent to me by publishers, so I'll let you know if that's the case when I'm talking about any of them. All of the stacks in front of me are completely disorganised, to be honest. I'm going to be jumping around a lot, but I did have to go to London recently for work. I was at Wimbledon Book Festival talking to kids, and I was also chairing the panel of judges for the Wimbledon Young Writers competition, which was such a fun experience. So glad that I was asked to be involved, and I also really enjoyed being at the book festival. I always, you know, love an opportunity like that. So that was a lot of fun, and I did end up buying some books while I was there, one of which was Gideon the Ninth by Tamzin Muir. So I picked this up in Forbidden Planet, which is somewhere I always have to make the time to go when I'm visiting London. I used to go there regularly when I lived there. It's one of my favourite places to find books because they stock a lot of sci-fi and fantasy I never see elsewhere in physical stores, and also that is published in the US. So they have a lot of US editions, books that have come out in the US that haven't come out in the UK yet, etc, etc, and some self-published stuff. So that's really super cool, and I did end up picking up this one, which had £2 off and was a signed copy, so how could I resist? I've wanted to pick this up for a long time. So many people have recommended it to me that I'm glad it's finally in my possession. I believe it sort of falls within the genres of sci-fi, horror, mystery. It's set on a space platform or ship in a far-flung future, which may also include fantastical elements, as there are people who are known as necromancers in this world, including, I believe, Gideon, our protagonist. And Gideon ends up wrapped up in some sort of murder mystery that's going on. It's also sapphic, the protagonist is a lesbian, and there is female-female love and romance. So I'm here for all of those elements. They sound fantastic, and I can't wait to see how the author combines them all. I then have a non-fiction book, which to be honest is very topical given what we were chatting about at the beginning there, or what I was rambling about, and that is Enraged: Why Violent Times Need Ancient Greek Myths by Emily Katz and Holton. And this is a slightly more academic non-fiction book, but I think there's an intention that it can be read by a variety of readers with different knowledge bases that talk about, you know, violence in ancient Greek myth. And the subject of this book just really drew me in. I spotted it in Lighthouse Books when I was out for the day with my friends Leanne and Victoria in Edinburgh, and that day out book shopping I actually managed to vlog, so I'll link that video down below for anyone that's interested in coming along on that journey with us. And this was in Lighthouse, and I hadn't heard of it before. I wasn't familiar with the scholar's work, but yeah, it sounded interesting. And one of the things I'm probably most excited about finishing my PhD is getting to jump back in to just reading ancient history books for fun. At the moment, for me, it doesn't really feel like fun. I feel so overwhelmed by my own research and picking out things that are relevant to my own research that I am getting to experience non-fiction ancient history in the same way I used to, and I feel like I might, and I feel like finishing up my thesis and my PhD are going to allow me to do that. So yeah, I'm hoping this will be one of the first ones that I read after. Next up, we have 2 romance novels by the same author, and to be honest, I've been buying a lot of romance recently because I've been reading a lot of romance. My 2 top genres at the moment are thrillers and romance, and anything that combines both is like my favourite. I can't find a lot of good romantic thrillers though, so let me know if you have any recommendations. But in terms of straight up romances, I picked up both of Tessa Bailey's new books. I'm pretty sure one was in 3 for 2 in Blackwell's and one was in buy one get one half price in Waterstones, but honestly I've lost track at this point. And this is Hook, Line and Sinker, which I believe is the second in a series following It Happened One Summer, which I do have as well. But I find with Tessa Bailey's romances that they follow different characters just set in the same world, in the same town for example, and you can kind of read them out of order. I'm a big fan of Tessa Bailey, and I've read I think 4 of her books in the past already. This, however, is about fisherman Fox Thornton, who has a reputation as a sexy, carefree flirt. But everyone knows he's a guaranteed good time in bed and out, and that's exactly how he prefers it until he meets Hannah Bellinger. She's immune to his charm and good looks, but she seems to enjoy his personality and wants to be friends. Bizarre. But he likes her too much to risk a fling, so platonic pals it is. Honestly, brilliant. Tessa Bailey just writes like the most good, fun contemporary romances, so I'm here for that. And then we have a much shorter one, almost more of a novella, which is a little bit of a like Christmas time romance. It's called Window Shopping, and it was there and it was by Tessa Bailey and it sounded fun and it was short, so I picked it up. Another book that actually came out of what feels like a recent video but was actually over a month ago is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. So you might have seen that I uploaded a video where I read books that a professional bibliologist picked for me, and I read 2 out of 3 of her recommendations and loved them both. So naturally I was already inclined to pick up her 3rd recommendation, and it was this. So it's on my bookshelf now and I have complete faith I'm going to love it because I loved the other 2 books and it was so personalised a recommendation for me. A few of you also said that I was going to like it, so that's extra like support in that camp. But this is another like horror mystery novel. I believe it falls into like the dark academia category. It's more literary fiction like The Secret History, which I really enjoy. But basically this follows a documentary crew, I believe, who are filming a documentary of an infamous like boarding school or private school where there was a whole series of unexplained or like odd and dramatic deaths over the past century. But when they get there, they may end up in a little bit of danger themselves. I don't know if this one ends up being a bit more fantastical or paranormal yet. Excited to find out though. The next 2 books are actually more that I picked up with Leanne and Victoria on our day out, and the first one is The Japanese Myths, A Guide to Gods, Heroes and Spirits by Joshua Friedman. So this book is published by Tamzin Hudson. It's aimed at an adult audience and it's part of a series that they publish of like world folklores and mythologies, and I own a few of them. I own the Greek and Roman volume, I own the Egyptian volume, and my partner owns the Norse volume. So I've been sort of like slowly checking them out and I really enjoy them. I think they've got like a really interesting format and like way of presenting the information. There's myths, but there's also like little deeper dives into how the myths pertain to the culture and the history of the time. There's little inserts about art and artifacts from the periods, and overall I really enjoy them. So naturally when I saw that there was a Japanese volume out, I really wanted to pick it up. I've really enjoyed reading Japanese mythology in the past and I think this will hopefully offer like a new perspective. So yeah, they're also really beautiful, let's be honest. And then we have Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. This is actually the 2nd book in the Murderbot Diaries and I have read this. I've read the first 4 books in the series, which are all novellas, and own the 5th book, which is a novel, on my bookcases. But I read the first 4 books on Scribd, which is like an ebook and audiobook platform that I use and really enjoy. Again, I'll link it down below for anyone that's interested, and have slowly been collecting the books in physical format in the lovely hardback editions from Tor because I love them so much that I really want to reread them. I've already bought the first book, which is All Systems Red, and lent it to my boyfriend. So yeah, when I saw this in Transreal, which is a little science fiction fantasy bookshop in Edinburgh, I had to pick it up. These are some of my favourite science fiction books ever written. The next 2 books were actually sent to me by the publishers for review, and the first one is Wild Card, Let the Tarot Tell Your Story by Jen Cowney and Fiona Lensfeld, and this is published by Pan Macmillan, or specifically Bluebird, which are an imprint of Pan Macmillan that specialise in non-fiction and lifestyle books. And this is just another stunning cover to begin with. Like, this is gonna look really beautiful on my kind of like witchy esoteric mythology bookcase, because why wouldn't I have one of those? And yeah, this book is all about tarot. It's a non-fiction book, and I really like reading non-fiction about tarot because I feel like they all offer a different perspective on how you can use tarot cards, what tarot can mean to you as somebody who uses them. I myself love tarot. It's something I have a more personal relationship with. It's something I find quite meditative and self-reflective and have always really enjoyed. I think I got my first tarot deck when I was 15. No, I know I got it when I was 15 because it was for my 15th birthday. So when Pan Macmillan said that they were publishing this book, which has like quite a modern perspective on tarot, quite an everyday lifestyle approach to tarot, I definitely wanted to check it out and I'm looking forward to reading it. I also, like I said, think it's stunning. We then have a book that was sent to me for review by HarperCollins, and it is the latest book by Nicholas Skinner, aka Giant. So Nicholas Skinner is one of my all-time favourite middle grade writers. I didn't start reading her books until I was an adult because they weren't published until I was an adult, but they just like stood out for me as an adult reading middle grade, and I think they are really, really wonderful for children as well as they should be, and like that's the priority, right, with children's books, but it's nice when I can enjoy them too. And before I tell you what this book is about, I have to show you the cover, because every time they come through with these books, look at what is underneath that dust jacket. Every single one of the books by Nicholas Skinner I have is in the same illustration style by Flavia Sorrentino, and it has all of these details from hardback illustrations to end paper illustrations. So yeah, I just want to acknowledge the work of the designer there because it's impeccable. So this blurb reads that ever since a long ago war, Minnie's island has been troubled by earthquakes. Luckily, the island's inhabitants have found a way to fix their crumbling walls. Giants. Giants look after human children like 11-year-old Minnie. When Minnie turns 12, she'll kiss her giant, turning her into a stone statue that will be used to repair buildings. And there's nothing wrong with that, or so Minnie has been taught. But after a dreadful earthquake strikes, Minnie realises she's not ready to lose her giant, so she goes on the run, betraying her parents and everyone she knows. The secrets she uncovers on her journey threaten to pull everything down, and Minnie must confront the startling truth about her island, her giant, and ultimately herself. This might be the next book I read, to be perfectly honest, because it just sounds like so much joy and adventure. Perfect. There's also illustrations inside. So the next two books in this book haul are going to expose a bit of a new addiction for me, and that is Nora Roberts, because they're all Nora Roberts books. So I've been meaning to read Nora Roberts for years. She's a prolific author with a massive fan base. She's had work adapted for the screen. She's written in multiple different genres. She even writes under different pen names. And I finally read one of her books of late, which was Shelter in Place. This was a thriller with a romantic subplot, and I loved it. It was so compelling. I immediately understood why people love Nora Roberts so much. Her writing is fantastic, and I just couldn't stop turning the pages. And it was more than a thriller, really. It was a sort of character study. It was an emotional journey through the lives of people affected by tragedy, and yeah, overall I loved it. So I then decided to read another book by Nora Roberts, but this time writing as J.D. Robb, which is a pseudonym that she writes science fiction under. So this was a murder mystery thriller set in 2058 called Naked in Death. I've already forgotten. I'm pretty sure that's what it was called though. I read it on my Kindle and I really enjoyed that too. So naturally I bought 3 more. Honestly, I may have taken things too far, but I don't care. I'm now a Nora Roberts stan, and you can't fight it. You can't fight it. Once you read a Nora Roberts, apparently you become addicted. And it's true, because I got Jill, my flatmate, to read Shelter in Place, and she then read another Nora Roberts afterwards, specifically this one actually. So this is Blood Brothers, which is the first in a series of mystery thrillers by Nora Roberts, and I think this one might even actually have like a hint of the paranormal or the fantastical based on the blurb. I haven't let Jill give too much away to me. And it follows a man called Caleb who lives in this small town called Hawkins Hollow, where something really tragic and awful happened years ago and has continued to haunt the town ever since, and it's about the sort of return of that legend, I believe, so I'm intrigued by that. Then a more straightforward like mystery contemporary thriller, I believe, is True Betrayals by Nora Roberts. I don't know why I'm telling you it's by Nora Roberts, you know that by now. And this one's about Kelsey Biden, who is divorced at just 26, isn't looking for any more drama, but then she receives a letter from her mother, Naomi. Not so unusual, except Kelsey has always been told that Naomi was dead. During an extended visit to her mother's beautiful horse farm in Virginia, Kelsey begins to untangle a lifetime of deception. Who can she trust when those she loves have lied to her for so long? To complicate things further, Kelsey is falling dangerously in love with Gabe Slater, Naomi's handsome and intriguing neighbour. But love and lies are a lethal combination. If Kelsey has any hope of a future with Gabe, she must first understand the terrible truth about her past. So that sounds fun. Then we have, lastly, by Nora Roberts, The Awakening, which is one of her fantasy novels. So this one follows a woman named Breen who ends up transported to a fantasy realm, And I love that this author just like writes in every single genre. I'm so here for it, and looking forward to reading something she's written that's fantasy, since I've tried her contemporary and her science fiction. Okay, what's next in this pile? So we then have 2 more books I was sent by the publisher, and these are both from the Macmillan Collectors Library series published by Pan Macmillan, and they are both anthologies. So we have Standing Her Ground, classic short stories by trailblazing women, edited by Harriet Saunders, and this is exactly as the title suggests. It's a collection of short stories by really incredible women writers who have made an impact on their genres in their time, including Mary Shelley, Elizabeth Gaskell, Edith Wharton, Winifred Holtby, and a few more. Some of whom I've read before, some of whom I haven't, but none of the stories in here I've read before. So I'm looking forward to experiencing some authors anew and some authors entirely from the beginning. But from having read the introduction already, it seems like a really interesting selection, a really complimentary selection, and I cannot wait to read the stories themselves. We then have classic science fiction stories edited by Adam Roberts, which again is, as the title suggests, a collection of classic sci-fi. We have authors again including Mary Shelley, Edgar Allan Poe, Florence McLandborough, Edward Page Mitchell, H.P. Lovecraft, and many, many more. I do enjoy a little bit of classic sci-fi, and again, this is a collection where I've read some of the authors but haven't read others, and I like this as a way to discover new authors and find new classics to try more of. So yeah, can't wait to read that. Then the next 4 books I have managed to pick up here I bought for myself, can't remember when, can't remember where, but they're in my house now. So first of all is Ghosted by Jen Ashworth, which sounds like a slightly surreal literary mystery. It's about a woman whose husband disappears, but she doesn't tell anybody for days, so naturally when she reports him missing, it's a little bit suspicious, but even she can't fully explain her behaviour or why she didn't go looking for him earlier, and I'm intrigued. I love that premise. I also love this cover. I was so tempted by it in hardback but waited and resisted for the paperback, and now it's in my hands. I'm looking forward to reading it. Again, on the thriller spectrum, I guess, we have The First Day of Spring by Nancy Tucker. This is one that my friend Leanne really, really highly recommended because she said the way that it tackles the class system and the experiences of the working class is just so raw and so accurate and so authentic, I guess, which really, really appealed to me. So this one is about Chrissy, who did something terrible when she was a child, but nobody knows about it, so it's her secret, and it's now 15 years later. She's an adult with her own child, and she's worried her secret might come out, so we will see what that is. Then we have a mystery, romance, historical novel. I think this may even be slightly fantastical based on the reviews I've read, and that's The Wisteria Society of Lady Scoundrels by India Holton. So this is a bit of like a comedy of manners. It's about a young woman who's a member of this Wisteria Society for Lady Scoundrels. I think they are like thieves and criminals, etc., but mix with the upper classes. And then we have a young man who has been given the job of assassinating one of their members, this young woman, but instead they find themselves inexplicably drawn to one another. For more straight up contemporary romance again, we have Spoiler Alert by Olivia Dade, who's an author I've wanted to read for the longest time in terms of contemporary romance, and I finally picked one of her books up. I'm pretty sure I did actually pick this one up in London in the Waterstones Piccadilly branch, because it's basically the only bookstore I know of that like I've been to in London or Edinburgh that has a specific dedicated romance section. It's so rare to find that in the UK, which I think is unfortunate given how popular a genre is. It does feel a little bit like literary snobbery, but thanks to Waterstones Piccadilly there's a huge selection, and I ended up coming out with this. And this is about Marcus, who is a massive TV star, but he's also like a die-hard fanfiction writer. Then we also have April, who is a cosplayer and a massive like nerd and into all of the same things basically that Marcus is, who posts herself cosplaying online and ends up going viral because it is a plus size version of this cosplay, which gets her some negative feedback, but Marcus decides to ask her out to spite the critics, and they both end up finding out that they might like each other a little bit more than they initially expected, so looking forward to that. Then we have a non-fiction book that I picked up called Sex Lessons from History by Fern Riddle. This is basically just what it says on the tin. It is a history of sex in different cultures and different places, and again I really miss reading non-fiction books like this, and I'm looking forward to picking more up once I've handed in my PhD and I'm done researching some of like the more horrific sides of this topic. Now my next book I can immediately tell you where I bought because it still has a sticker on the front. This is from Blackwell's. It was in a 3 for 2 deal and I picked this up with Victoria and Leanne, who also picked up copies, so we're planning on buddy reading this when I've got a little bit more free time again, and it's called The Woman in the Purple Skirt by Natsuku Imamura, and it's a very brief blurb but it just immediately drew me in. It reads, "The woman in the purple skirt is being watched. Someone is following her, always perched just out of sight, monitoring which buses she takes, what she eats, whom she speaks to. This invisible observer isn't a stalker, it's much more complicated than that." Sold. Then another book I picked up on that same day out is a non-fiction one I found in Lighthouse called Brick by Brick, How We Build a World Without Prisons, which is a deep dive on the topic brought together by the Cradle Community Group. So they are a collective of organisers committed to radical education and building understanding of prison, abolition and transformative justice. I have read a lot of books about the prison systems in the US in particular, because there's so many of those, but also a few about the UK and more like worldwide. However, I have yet to pick up a book like this which quite firmly addresses the future of a world without prisons, what that looks like, rather than simply why prisons are bad. So I really like that unique take. I thought it sounded very practical and a natural next step in my reading, and I had to pick it up. Then a proof that is probably one of the most exciting proofs I've been sent this year and will be sent this year, because it is of course Natalie Haynes' retelling of Medusa, Stone Blind. So this book isn't out until September, but I know there's already a ton of buzz around it, and I feel very fortunate that PanMac did send me this early review copy. I've been a big fan, a big supporter of Natalie Haynes' myth retellings since Children of Jocasta. Absolutely adore them, and have even interviewed her for my podcast about 1,000 Ships, so I'll link that down below if you're interested in hearing us chat more about her last myth retelling. But Medusa is one that Medusa is a myth that I feel like is getting more time to shine of late. We are really exploring a lot of like the sexism and patriarchal standards inherent in her story, and I'm really enjoying seeing that being done for different age groups. Then before my camera dies, I have 3 big hardbacks here that were sitting at the bottom of the pile. The first of which is the Hacienda by Isabel, Canis, and this has been described as a Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca, which sounds fantastic. I loved Mexican Gothic. I was sort of neutral on Rebecca as a book, but I loved the concept. It just didn't necessarily deliver in the pacing for me or necessarily the ending. But this sounds brilliant. I picked this up in London again, and it's set during the aftermath of the Mexican War for Independence, and it follows Beatrice, whose father was executed during the overthrow of the Mexican government. But when handsome Don Rodolfo proposes, Beatrice ignores the rumours surrounding his first wife's sudden demise, choosing instead to seize the security that his estate in the countryside provides. She will have her own home again, no matter the cost. I can immediately see where the comparisons to Rebecca come from, but of course it's not the sanctuary that she imagined, and this one is meant to be a sort of historical Gothic set in Mexico, which I love. I love Gothic literature, so cannot wait to read it. Continuing on the darker side of literature, we have Tripping Arcadia, another Gothic novel by Kit Maquis. This one is more contemporary, and it follows Lena, who's a medical school dropout, desperate for a job because her family are about to go bankrupt. So when she's offered a position against all odds working for one of Boston's most elite families, as illustrious as they are secretive, Lena knows she must accept it, no matter how bizarre the interview or how vague the job description. By day she is assistant to the family doctor and his charge Jonathan, the sickly, poetic, drunken heir to the family empire. By night, Lena discovers the more sinister side of the family as she works overtime at their lavish parties, helping to hide their self-destructive tendencies. I just thought this one sounded fascinating. And then lastly, for this book haul, we have The Gosling Girl by Jacqueline Roy. So this one is a contemporary thriller and follows a woman who was convicted of murdering another young girl when she was a young girl herself before she'd reached adulthood, and has now been released as an adult with a new name and a new identity. But when another death occurs in her presence, in her vicinity, she is brought in for questioning, and I believe it follows the conflict experienced by the lead police detective on the case and her relationship with this convicted murderer. Whether she did it or not, I don't know. So yeah, that is the last book for this book haul. I can't believe it, we did it! These books have just been sitting there waiting to be talked about on this channel for far too long, so I'm glad I got the opportunity to do that, and I'm glad I just got to sit down and natter with you and catch up and film again, because I haven't sat down to film in forever. Even the last video I filmed, as you know, was a vlog. So yeah, thanks for sticking around to the end if you managed to. Thanks for returning to my channel, and thanks for being patient whilst I deal with everything going on. And like I said before, let me know if you do have video requests for the post-July period, because I cannot wait for the new chapter of my life to start. But until then, happy reading, and I'll see you all again in the next one. Bye everyone!